Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sharon Talks Art. Lovely to have you with me again. Thank you so much for joining me. You always wonder whether people are going to come back and have another look, so I'm so glad that you decided to. Today I think it's going to be a bit of a purple day. When I'm looking over the things that I want to talk to you about and the things that I want to do, I really think that we're going to have a touch of the purples today. Purples and magentas. Come with me and see what we've got. Today's colour in the spotlight is magenta. This gorgeous, eye-wateringly bright, reddish purple pink. It's the most gorgeous colour, magenta. Been around since about 1858. It was developed by a chemist, and it is a peculiar colour, and it has the strangest story. It fascinates me no end. Here it is in the palette, between red and purple. Gorgeous colour. There it is, Windsor and Newton, Artist's Watercolour. It sits in the colour spectrum somewhere here-ish. We know the colours, don't we? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. It's somewhere between a red and a violet. These are the colours that we can see with the eye. They're the colours that we can recognise and that we know. But, believe it or not, when we take all those lights from the light spectrum and all those colours, magenta isn't there. It doesn't actually exist. So you're not really seeing it because you can't see it. It doesn't exist. But your brain is so clever and so intelligent that it looks at that and it knows all of those and it says, that's what that colour is. I know where that sits in the spectrum. I'll make it up. And as a consequence, that means that you and I and the man next door and the painter over the road all probably see it in a completely different way. Isn't that just the most stunning fact? You know me, I love colours, and I have this colour mixing book. I use it when I'm working to put down the colours as I'm mixing them and trying them out, write them down. You never know when you might need to go back to a recipe, so to speak, and look at a colour and think, how did I make that? So this is my recipe book. And what I've done here is just been playing with my magenta and seeing what colours I can mix with it and where it goes, really. You don't know unless you try. So I've got, this is Potter's Green. It's the most peculiar colour. Wedgwood colours. We'll do those one day. We'll deal with those when we are working on our future colour mixes. But there we have, that's Potter's Green. It's quite an opaque colour, and so that means it's a thick colour. Big pigment granules. And into that, what happens if I add magenta? You see it makes this lovely, soft, milky rose. It's actually very pretty. Let's have a bit more of the green and see if we can change it a bit more. I really like that. And of course that, when you're working, would granulate. And granulation, you know, when it settles and it sits in the paper. This is what's happened up here. Let me bring you a little bit closer so that you can see. But this is what's happened up here with the cerulean blue. And you can see how the blue has sat down in the depths of that paper where the paper's wibbly wobbly, and you've got this granulation. Nice effect as well with Cascade Green. I like the burnt sienna, that soft orange. It would be beautiful if you were working with desert colours. And then we've got the potter's blue. This is gorgeous, isn't it? And I like the brown, the reddish brown that's been produced with hooker's green. Nice colours. Quinacridone gold. Oh, what's that? That's Viridian. That is Viridian. So it's a good idea, you see, to write underneath where you've been with it. So down here, potter's green. I just want to show you this though. Look next door. Isn't that scrummy? That is Prussian blue and magenta. Absolutely lovely. We all know French ultramarine will granulate nicely. So when we look at that, oh man, that's nice. This for florals, hydrangeas. Can you imagine if you were painting bluebells in the woods? So here we have all of the mixtures that this is my palette. These are the colours that I enjoy using, and it's just scrummy, isn't it? I've got that for reference now. I can use that anytime I want to. Just go back to it and refer to this. Well, I thought today, as we'd been talking about magenta, it would make sense to use that particular colour for our demonstration. Therefore, with magenta and Naples Yellow, I am going to use only those two colours, I think, to have a go at this particular painting. And the first thing I want to do, I notice that just 1, 2, 3 petals and the tips here have a touch of yellow, and all we'll do is take our Naples Yellow, and I want to use that very thinly, so pull it through until it's pale. Let's have a look. See, that's a little bit too dark yet, and I just want to lay Naples Yellow into these petals, and this will be the underpainting, the colour underneath. Now when you have a blob like that, all you need to do is wick your brush on a piece of cloth and then come in and lift it. If you rinse your brush, you'll find that it cleans the brush too much, and then when you come in to lift the colour, it takes too much out and you land up with a white mark. So don't clean your brush, leave it with a little bit of pigment on it. So there again, you see, there's my drip. I'm going to wick it and then come in and gently pick it up, and it doesn't take a white swipe out of the picture. I've just added some little yellow flicks there because I noticed there's yellow on the tips of these petals. And then we have yellow in the centres here, in the centre of the petals, so I want to come in and I'm going to lay some yellow in there. And what you do here is you pop it in, rinse, dab, and come into the side that you want to blend and just wipe it like that. The bulk of this petal here is this pink, this magenta pink. And the lines on it are very diffused and very soft, so let's work into that quite carefully. The only place they're not is here. So, to make that easy for ourselves, we're going to come in here and we're going to dampen down the whole of the petal. Don't go right up to the edges because that will keep a nice sharp edge for you, but I want it to be damp wet. And if I come into the magenta, let me put it here so that you can see what I'm up to. I want to run it over this area. And it doesn't go right up to the edge. Not everywhere it doesn't, so just observe it and see where it comes to. And it doesn't come up to this edge here. And then down to here, down to the goldy area, this yellow. So I'm going to rinse it and dab it, and I'm going to soften this edge. Soften that there, rinse, get rid of the drip, and then I want to just soften this down through here. Now I'm just going to have a little bit of a wait. Just wait for a minute. Change my brush, and I'm coming down to, this is number 4. And now I want to use my paint a little more thickly. And gently, gently, while it's all still wet and damp, let's see if it'll work. I want to bring down this line here, down through here. And then I want to think about all the little veins that are through this petal. It's still damp, it's still working, so I can still move the paint about. They're darker over here, much more defined. Some of these are quite blurry, quite thin, not quite there. Some of them are out into this area here. On the whiter edge, there's a big vein that runs up through there. We'll put that in. So all these little teeny tiny marks and shapes, just feed them in. So it's still a little bit damp. It's the kind of damp that if I put my finger on it, I'd leave a mark. There's a dark line down through here. And then we have some really interesting shapes on the tips here, like this. So I'm using the paint almost neat at the moment, enough water to manipulate it. So I'm coming in, moving that through. Again, not going right up to that edge. That edge is still just quite white. A little bit in there. I'm going to come back into this because now it's drying some more and I can put some more veins in there. Like this. Very beautiful things, orchids, aren't they? It's just absolutely gorgeous. We've got a little bit of shadow in there, so I'm just going to put that in. Rinse, dab the drip, come back, just soften that like that. So that's that. Happy with that. Leave that alone. Let it dry. If you need to go back in and fiddle with it again later, you can. That's not a problem. But for now, we're going to leave it alone. And then with the next petal along, this one here with the yellow background, same applies. We want to come in and just dampen it. And you're doing this because it gives you extra time to think about what you're doing. And your lines will be softer rather than too hard. So just damp, not soggy wet. Absolutely not soggy wet. And now I want to come in, and this particular petal has some very, very defined lines on it. I'm going to come down and through whilst it's still wet, which keeps them soft and lovely. They won't be hard, so a little bit like that. And they will kind of fracture and they will bleed. And that's just what I want them to do. Wider one down the middle there. This one's a bit sort of dot and dash, a bit Morse code, down through here. And then we've got an area there that's quite pink. I'm going to put it in, I'm going to rinse, get rid of the drips, soften, clean the brush, get rid of the drip, and then come in and do that. And then I need to put this lovely frill work, this trellis work around the edge, and again it doesn't quite come up to the edge like this. kind of join up with this, don't they? Down like that. I love my orchids. I found that it's one thing that I'm managing to grow on a north-facing windowsill. They love it because they have plenty of light, but they're not too hot because they absolutely will not tolerate direct sun on their leaves. It burns them. So I need to keep clear of that. And they're really, really doing well. Got lots of them and they thrive. So that gives us that particular petal. Now we're going to look at this one. Bright, sharp light along this top edge and along the bottom here. The rest of it is really very pink, and then we lay the veins in on top. So thin, thin colour. And in here, the veins have become white, and the middle of them, between the veins, is the colour. So you've got this lovely counterpoint here of a bit and a bit. So it's quite nice to feed that in. And we're doing a little bit of negative painting here because we're not painting the veins, we're painting what's between the veins. So you're painting the shading and the shadows behind. Negative painting. So you're actually seeing the veins now as the white here, and you're looking at what's between the veins. So that's okay. Just go in and paint over the top of it. And then I've got two really quite pink areas. So there's one up through here. So I want to make that quite yellow. Up through there. And that comes down to here. And then I've got quite a yellowy area here. Rinse and dab. See the yellow underneath? When I say I have a yellow area, I didn't mean that, did I? I meant I've got a pink area. So along here, I'm coming in with this gorgeous pink, and I'm just laying in these shapes, these interesting shapes along the edge of the petal. And we've got a couple of thin streaks like that. And this really, really defines the edge of the flower. This will run all the way from here as well, down through here. Little bits and dibbly-dabbly bits and odds and ends, and a couple of bits of lattice there, almost. So we'll put that in, and that makes that jump out at us, doesn't it? We've got these lovely, wonderful little spots around here. Now that, on dry, makes them very positive and definite like that. All right? But as they come up into this area, they're coming up into the wet paint, which will diffuse them a lot more. So we've just got to come up into the wet, and we've got some lines along this petal like this. You see, that's too dry. So I'm just going to take a bit of water on the other brush and just do that. Like that, and that should work for me. I've got quite a dark line up through there, and then I've got some marks through here. My paper's drying. I think it must be under the lights. So this is just a damp brush to come through and soften that. And if you want to, when this is starting to dry, you can even lay more paint on top of there to get a darker, more defined, quite a yellow edge to this, through there and down through here. And this is the bit that attracts the moths, because they look at this and think that they're seeing an insect, which is quite interesting. And the middle of it actually looks almost as though it has two eyes, like this, and then around this edge here and here, we've got some pale pink blushing. It really does look like a face. So again, come in, soften it with your brush, like that. And then we've got some blurry pink in there, and then something quite dark going on here in the throat of it, like that. And then it's quite dark down through here. And this is almost solidly purple. We have a little bit of yellow around the edges. We'll deal with that in a minute. I've got the purple on the brush, so I'm going to come into this, calling it purple, magenta, scrummy magenta. It was originally put together and developed in 1858 it was. Chemists discovered the colour and it made big news, very, very popular colour. Used first of all, believe it or not, in uniforms, for dyeing uniforms. And they called it, it was a fuchsia colour, and they called it, I don't know how you pronounce it, fuchsine, fuchsine, and rosine it was called actually in Britain. France called it the fuchsine, and in Britain it was called rosine, but it wasn't really a terribly sort of butch manly name for people who were using it for uniforms, so that's when it got its name magenta. But eye-wateringly sharp, bright colour, isn't it? You wouldn't miss it. Can you imagine seeing it on a battlefield? Goodness, it'd be scary, wouldn't it? In the end, the companies were all afraid to make magenta because the lawsuits started, so many people were making it, that they were all taking out lawsuits against each other, trying to get the patent for themselves, and in the end nobody was touching it. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, you can't get it right all of the time. So I'm coming in now and we're just colouring these petals that come up and through like this, and I'm coming back to get hold of this golden yellow, and I want to blend it into the edge, and these become paler as they come up here. So that's just a bit of water. Soften, soften, soften. Soften this by coming in and seesawing like that. So come into it and seesaw, that's it. And I want to lift some colour out down that edge and down that edge, and then we want to drop some thick dark colour in for the splodges. They're like vampires almost, look, these gorgeous little teeth, and they're yellow, so I'm just picking up my Naples Yellow and adding those into there. This is a bit lighter in through there, just blending that, and then when that's dry there's a little purple triangle. Go to the drier areas and I might want to pull some yellow through there, so put it in, rinse, get rid of the drip, and then just gently soften round the area that we've added. So I'd like a bit more in there. Rinse, dab, come in, and nudge and budge and soften it. I'd like to make this a bit darker in here, so pop it in like that. And I rinse and I dab and I come in and I soften. And I'd like some of this to be dark enough. I'm going to do this, it's probably going to smudge the purple, but in actual fact that's fine for me because it will soften it. So I'm just going to do that. I'm rinsing, dabbing and doing that. Having done all that, you see now it means that I really need to think about this in here. So if I take a smaller brush, I don't want to be making a mess of what I've painted. And I come into my yellow, I can just make all of that a little bit darker in there to make it stand out. And the last thing I really need to think about is to look at this area here. These are very yellow here, and then they have little purple dots on those. So we're coming in, and I'm going to just spatter that with that like that. I want to put a hint of some texture in there too. And I need, don't I, to put my little teeny triangle just in there like that. And I think the tips of these are just a little more yellow. There we go. So that's a very quick, fast way to paint an orchid. Easy washes, laying one colour on top of another, bit of blending, bit of everything really. But there we go. Have a try. See what you can make of it. Here we can see Magenta in my favourite book. It really is my favourite book. It's wonderful. It names and lists all of the colours, and here are the colours on the sides of the pages. And it tells us all about them. It's the history of the colour, from when it first arrived, who invented it, funny anecdotes about the colour, everything you need to know. If you enjoy books and you like reading, it's called The Secret Lives of Colour, and it's by somebody called Cassia St. Clair, and I adore it. I love everything about it. I like the cover, and these are all indented, silly little things, don't they? Just catch my attention, and I like them. I like the feel of it. It's a good solid book. It's a heavy book, so it feels as though you've got something for your money, and it's stuffed full, absolutely stuffed full with information. And I refer to it again and again and again, and it's one of my favourite things to do if I have students and we're studying and working. I love to be able to read from this book whilst everybody's got their heads down working. It means I'm not running around behind them looking over their shoulders, but everybody's getting a bit of interesting information at the same time. So if you like books, this is one that I would really recommend. You can buy it on Amazon. It's readily available, and hopefully yours will be as well worn as mine, because mine's quite grubby. It's got paint all over it. To paraphrase that well-known comedian and singer, I want to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you the story of the handbag. What handbag, you ask? Well, this handbag, look at that. My furry friend. Nice leather straps, and it's very fluffy. And I fell in love with it. I brought it home and my husband said to me, "What is that? What are you going to do with it?" And okay, fair enough. But I just loved it because it's different, and you know me, I love something different. Well, I found that many years ago in that well-known shop, TK Maxx. I am allowed to mention them. We're not an advertising programme here, but I am allowed to mention them. I don't have to talk about other available outlets. Okay. I bought my handbag. And this was right really at the beginning of my career. The other part of my job, I sit here and I teach and I paint and I take painting holidays and I go out and I have classes, all sorts of lovely things, judge competitions. It's a good, interesting job. It's different all of the time. And a big part of that is to be a demonstrator, and I go out and about and I travel around the countryside. I mean, I really do, miles and miles, and go to visit art societies, and I demonstrate for them and show them how to do what I do in my way. Well, right at the very beginning of it all, when I really wasn't very sure, pre-sat-nav days, I had a demo quite a ways away, and it would have involved a late night, and so hubby, being good and generous and didn't have to go to work the next day, said, come on, I'll drive you. And that was cool. So off we trotted and we went up country somewhere and had a demo. It was dark and it was late and people were gathering outside the hall, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm new to this. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this as fast as that and be as polished as I ought to be, because I'm stressed. And we waited and we waited. No one had come to open the hall up. Eventually someone did, and I probably had about 10 minutes to set everything up. Hubby was new to this, so I knew that I would probably end up having to give a bit of careful direction there, you know, don't do that, do this, put that there, you know what it's like. And okay, we managed. I shot in the hall, I had this handbag, and as we walked in the hall, stupid thing really, I dumped it down by the door just as I walked in so that I could just go and get on, and flew and did what I needed to do. I mean, in retrospect, to put a handbag right by the doorway was ridiculous, but that was just my frame of mind at the time. Now I'm setting up, the big easel goes up, the table's up, I'm preparing my paints. All is going quite well. Hubby's doing his thing with the tables and my cards and bits of paint, so that was all going well. And I have this bowl when I'm working. I have two bowls, this one and the one behind me on the easel, as you can see here, which I'm properly dropping. There you go, look. It's nothing posh here in this household, I'll tell you. So that's an old yoghurt pot, and I use that for my water that hangs on the easel. And when I'm painting a huge, great big sky, I use this to clean my brushes in. And really, once I've done that, it's toast, and I need clean water for the rest of the picture. And I grabbed this and I belted off to the ladies so that I could go and fill it up with water, and I was all ready to rock and roll. Because of course the poor people in the hall couldn't help me. They were too busy setting chairs up, organising everything, and just preparing for their meeting. Of course they were. I filled this up. I've got a tide mark, you can see where it goes to, and I'm carefully walking it back to the hall, rushing as much as I could. And an elderly gentleman passed me, and as he did, he said to me, "Is that for your little dog, dear?" What? And I did that thing that we all do, and I just kind of smiled nervously and said, "Oh," and muttered something sort of inconsequential and really rather hopeless, and dashed on, didn't really have time to think about it. Settled down, started the demo, and it was all going quite well. I was quite pleased with that. It was all right. I've discovered that maybe I was a little bit better than I thought I was. So I'm painting away, and in the meantime this little gentleman is sitting in the audience, and he's smiling at me and sort of looking down and looking up and doing this, and I'm thinking, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? What's he I don't know what's going on. I've missed something really important. And then I'm thinking, well, I hope he doesn't say anything to my husband. Well, it wasn't a joke, was it, about my husband being with me and calling my husband a little dog, was it? What's going on? Anyway, didn't really think any more of it until the end of the demonstration. I'm tidying up, putting everything away, and I watched this gentleman get up, walk from his chair and go to the doorway where my handbag was sitting on the floor, and he bent down and he patted my handbag. And so for the whole of the demonstration I realised that he thought I had brought my dog with me, and the dog was being a good little dog sitting on the floor just in the doorway.
Everybody, meet Phil Broomfield, our wonderful electrician, who walked into our house one day, and I think he got a lot more than he expected, because of course I took one look and decided that I wanted to photograph him and paint him. So here he is as the gatekeeper, sitting, looking after the gateway. To what? We don't know. That's for your imagination. But I've used this gorgeous cascade green here to lush effect up in the top left hand corner. This blossoming is so typical of this particular paint, and I do love it. It's just wonderful. And you'll find that in episode 1 of Sharon Talks Art. The effect in the foreground is salt, and it's just sprinkling salt on wet paint, and you get this gorgeous effect. Let me draw your attention to the amulet on his arm, the edge of his cloak, his earring, and the staff that he's holding, the end of the staff. And I haven't used just any old paint here. I've gone for a gold calligraphy ink because it just shines and stands out so beautifully. More about that later.
When we were looking at my latest piece of work, the guardian of the gate, the gatekeeper, I was talking about the calligraphy ink that I had used for the detail on his outfit, and I thought that probably it would be a good opportunity to show you what this is and what it can do. I want to use a simple dipping pen, nothing spectacular, nothing unusual, nothing special. It's just a cheap, some people used to call it matte pen, but very, very fine nibs, beautiful thing, very good for detail. And we're revisiting the orchid that I had painted earlier on in the demonstration. Since you've been away, I've simply used a marker pen. This is a permanent marker pen to give myself a border, and I thought that was a little bit plain. Shall we do something to make it a bit more interesting and a bit more exciting? So this is where this comes in. And as I said to you, I don't do calligraphy. This isn't what I want this for, and it's not why I use it. But it's the goldest gold I've ever seen. It's scrumptious. If we take a look at it, it's just very, very gold. And of course, if you use this against a dark background, it gives you stunning effects. It's just a case of dipping to get the colour on the tip of the pen. And I want to play with the edge of this design. So I'm coming up to the top, but not down to the bottom. And I want to see how far I can go with this, so I'm not going to overdo it. And if you press a little hard, you get a wider line. Good idea to stop when you get to the top of the line. I'm just going to come down one side of this so that you can see what I'm doing. So along here. Carefully. One thing, if you're unkind to this nib, it will flick. It'll spatter, and then it will flick out and make a mess. So I've come along that outer line. Let's go back to the very beginning. As somebody once said, it's a very good place to start. And then I want to come in here and go down to the bottom line this time and do this. There we are, and I'll stop there because that's a good place to stop. And then all I'm going to do is come back to the beginning, and where it's curved this way, I'm going to curve like that. And where it's curved this way, I'm going to curve like that. But I'm not going to fill all of it in. Very lovely. The next thing I want to do here, I've managed to find myself a pearlescent. It's called Moon Violet. Very beautiful colour. And with this, we'll just write on the top what the plant is. All I want to do is come in here with a nib full of ink, and I'm just going to write it is Phalaenopsis, Phalaenopsis orchid. And I'm a bit of a one for nice sharp edges. I know I am. I can't help it. It's just what I like. So to finish this off, I'm going to whiz all around the edges with a nice dark pen. There we are, all done. I feel as though that's finished now, whereas I didn't before. I want it to feel and look smart. I'm not one for leaving my work too loose. For me, that's fine. I'm happy now. There always seems to be so much choice on the market, and I thought it might be a plan to have a little look now and then and dip into the catalogues and the art companies that are available to us as artists. The SAA are there, they call themselves Supporting All Artists. Brilliant, brilliant for all of us. To help us, guide us, to inspire us, and to get our creative juices flowing. This is their catalogue, it's new. It's just come out because, of course, with lockdown it's been difficult with people being able to provide bits and pieces and to stay current. Nice catalogue, good size, 170 pages of it. The SAA have laid it all out quite beautifully. I like the way that on the front here at the very beginning we've got a concise contents, but if you don't find that helps you, you can go to the back and there's a very comprehensive index, very comprehensive. So you have 3 pages of that, very useful. And on this front here, they're giving us top tips and some really interesting, good, useful information. I mean, just to tear that page out and to pop it in your art file is worth having, because they're talking about paints and the transparency and opacity of it, and it tells you what to expect to see on the paints. And then it tells you a little bit about the series, explains granulation, because we're always whittering on about granulation. And if I bring you in tight, you'll see exactly what that is all about. So here we have something that's granulated and something that hasn't. This is fine, fine paint that probably even dissolves in the water. This is large pigments, and the pigments sit down and get down into the deep depths of the paper when the paper's rough, and it gives you this lovely, lovely look. So that explains that. It gives you a clue to the light fastness and permanence of paint, because the two are different. Light fast means that light shouldn't hurt it within 100 years. Permanence means whether it comes off or whether you can rub it away, whether you can lift it with a paintbrush, etc. Tells you about pigments, and there's something here about hues. This is all worth having. And then we get into watercolours first. So again, very, very useful catalogue. You have all the colours. They do their own paints even. So if you wanted a cheaper option to Windsor and Newton and De La Rowney, you have this option here. Very good value for money. Each different type of product has a little picture that's been painted by an artist, so you can see what to expect. And you have all the information that you'd want, the transparency, semi-transparency, the series number, so it's all there for you. Windsor and Newton, of course. Look at this, this is Mr. Daniel Smith. What a vast array, and they're all there. I've found in the past, whenever I've been looking for products, that there's very little I can't find in the SAA catalogue. And to be honest with you, apart from the Copic pens that I've just bought recently, and to be honest, they do sell Copic, I can't think of anything that I've desperately wanted that I haven't been able to find. So, you know, that's got to be a good recommendation, hasn't it? Brusher, of course, which is this fun ink powder that we can all play with. And we've got watercolour inks, we've got acrylic inks, there's gouache, and then you work your way through to the acrylics and oils. And you have the little bits and pieces that go with these particular types of paint. So very good paint blocks to work on, the brushes to use, all the essentials and the accessories are here. We work through, we come to acrylic inks. Here we have the oils and all the mediums that you might want to use for oils. And of course nowadays it's brilliant because you don't have to have the smelly stinky stuff. There are all sorts of different types of product that you can use that don't smell. God bless Bob Ross, a hero of so many people. Here he is, he's still here, still in the catalogue, and I do believe at the moment in the mornings you'll still be seeing him on TV. He's still there. His legacy lives on. What an incredible man. Here are the varnishes and solvents and liquid and all the different things they do, what they look like. I mean, look at this for selection. Very good. Nice clean catalogue actually, because it's not all stuffed in. I can't bear it when everything's like a jumble sale and it's all so tight that you can't see it. I don't like it. And I must admit, I love the paper too, and as daft as that sounds, it does make a difference, because something that's nice to handle, you're more inclined to linger over it, aren't you? Whereas some of the rougher papers, I don't know, I'm fussy about things like that. And then we've got coloured pencils and pastels, again great variety. And the bits and pieces that go with them, all the little accessories and products and the fixatives. Working through, alcohol, ink, pens, all the different kinds of pens, the dip pens indeed that we've used today. Here they are, pens. Here's the fantastic dot pen. We'll get round to that on another episode and I'll show you how that works, because they are great fun. And then they have the most phenomenal selection of brushes. They truly, truly do. Lots and lots of brushes from, you've got Sables and all the acrylics that you could wish for, bristle brushes. They even now do a Sable brush, a look-alike Sable brush. Feels like Sable, and it does actually work like Sable. I'm still trying to wear mine out to see if it goes fuzzy and fluffy. It hasn't yet, so you know, I'm keeping my eye on it. But lovely, lovely selection. Oh, I wonder who that person is. There, look. So here we go. Here's the synthetic Sable here. And as I said, look, at first I was very sceptical, and I really was. I didn't think you could beat a Sable brush, and I was very pleasantly surprised. And that's true. That is true. So there you go. Lots and lots of... I love brushes. I would have a house full of brushes. Same as cats, really. Cats and brushes. That's me. And lots of lovely paper. And look, here again, This is fantastic. Surface textures, photographs of them, and then what we call them, because that's confusing, isn't it? What does not mean? Not what. It actually means not hot pressed. It's as simple as that. But cotton or cellulose, cellulose is wood, is a wood pulp. And then the weight of it, and whether it's mould made or cylinder made, and the sizing, that's the coating that's on the paper. And even here, look, the format of the different ways the paper can be cut and what it's called. So I like this very much. If you're ever in doubt, you can go and just check that out and look. Lots of different types of papers, and in colours too. Papers for pastel work, paper for pencil work, paper for, you can even get pads now for oil and mixed media, which is really rather cool. And nowadays even black watercolour paper. Oh, I have been longing for that for years and years, longing for it, and it's finally here. So oil and acrylic surfaces. I know I won't show you there. Look, where's she gone? Where's she gone? I'm looking for a particular photograph of somebody, and I think I've passed it by. Never mind, we'll come to her again in a minute. I'm going to tell you, here she is. This, everybody, let's come in tight, is Anita. This is Anita Pounder, and Anita is the SAA's in-house artist, and she tests the whole lot to destruction. And I've found that whenever I've got a problem or an issue with something, or I don't understand it, or I don't know how it works, I've gone to Anita and asked, and she's always been able to help me. Very knowledgeable. So that's Anita Pounder. And then the back part of this particular catalogue is the books. So they also have a lovely selection. Let's get to it. Let's find it here. A lovely, lovely selection of books. Look at this. So you wouldn't want for something to inspire you, to be honest. Pastels. And my favourite pages in something like this are the Bitzers. I just love the palettes, and I love all these Bitzers. You know what I mean? All the little bits. I want one of those, and I want some of them, and I want a bit of that, and I'd like one of those. And, you know, they're all the little bits and pieces that sometimes we've never thought that we couldn't live without, but suddenly they become desperately desirable. There you go. All the Bitzers. And I like the way it's laid out cleanly. I can see it. I can understand it. I can look at it properly. A decent sized photo. It's not some stupid little thing like this. So very, very useful. There you go. All these lovely bits and pieces. The SAA, it's a membership group. They've got tens of thousands of members all over the world. And it costs £45 a year for your free postage and your special prices on your bits and pieces that you might want to buy. They have 800 videos online that you can look at from artists like myself. You can go and watch the videos, video on demand it is, just like on telly, which is really rather cool. There's a magazine that comes out every 2 months, and you'll also find that your catalogues come with it. You'll get one of these when the new one comes out, and a supplementary each time. There's a welcome pack for new members, and of course it means that you're part of a lovely great big group of a community of artists with its own social media on Facebook, which is good, and the SAA staff join you and talk to you, which is really rather good. And they will also give you insurance. So if you exhibit at exhibitions, they will give you exhibition insurance, which is really rather cool. You just fill in a form online with the names of your paintings and the prices. And so if anybody goes and knocks your precious baby off the wall or drops it, you know. If you
that
ever
you're
did
covered.
consider joining, there's a number above here. If you would quote that, that would be fantastic. It's on the screen now. And I think for me, this has been a good membership. I've been a member for 20 years or something. And I like my materials from them. I like the knowledge that's behind it. I like the ethos behind the business. And I just like being a part of something that's as large and all encompassing like that. So there you go. There we have the new and rather nice SAA catalogue. Something rather good for you to have on your shelf. Here I am today, and I'm trying out my new Sharon crane gimbal just to see how it works and what we think of it. So let me know if you think that that's smooth and that's okay. I wanted to show you my workstations today to see what I'm doing and what I'm busy with at the moment. Over here I've got my light fast paper, because next week I'm going to be on Hochanda, working on Hochanda with Derwent, and this is the new Derwent light fast paper. And I've just started a picture here of this rather beautiful kitty cat. And this is a piece of work that I'm preparing with plans to be able to do a little bit on TV. But over on the other desk, of course, I've got absolute chaos here. This is a picture that I'm drawing out because I'd really rather like to colour that in with the graphy tint when I'm on TV. This is the drawing and sketching paper, pencils that I'll be using. So the new light fast and graphy tint. Here's the Pro Colour. And supplementary to all of this chaos, here's the picture that I'm working on that you'll see with today's video, you'll recognise. And over here I have the catalogues that have been sent to me recently, and I would like to very much go through these and review some of them with you at a future date. So this is work for the future. And the next artist demo days, we're having a big event, and here's the young lady that I'm going to be painting for that. And the subject is celebration, and this is Rebecca, and I'm going to be painting her, and the painting will be called Every Last Drop. The acrylic artboard that you're looking at over here, I've got a couple of commissions that I need to do, so that's going to be another thing to sort out. Gosh, there's so much work to do and so little time. I don't know where it all goes. This is my latest project. I thought you might like to see it, and perhaps over subsequent Sharon Talks Art we will just go with the progress and see how it goes. It's going to be a wizard's tower, very much like my stump house that you may or may not have seen. I'll put the link up for you. This is going to be something a little different, but along the same lines. And I'm starting off, this is a Pringles box, a carton for Pringles, and this is foam board down the bottom. We all know foam board. And when we turn it round, I've started creating a wizard's tower. Let me take you indoors. I've used tissue to make the walls, and I've painted that. And then you've got a little balcony here and stairs down below, and a fireplace that will be once I get cracking on that. And then this is going to be a study down here. And through here, the doorway that you see here, this I'm going to turn into a kind of a kind of bridge arch, and that will have a balcony on it. So I've started the balcony, and I'm using, this is egg box, it's just pieces of box, and I'm going to cover all of the walls with this eventually, and it will all be painted separately. But I've put the grey on there for now because I thought to myself that will give me a base colour, so that the painting, I just need to worry about the stones when I paint them on top. Now on this, oopsie diddle, let's put this back. I'll put it over there out of the way. On top of this, we're going to have this affair here. That will sit on top. And this is going to be the tower part of the main event where our wizard will be doing his work. So you can see I've put the pentagram on the floor, and we'll have stairs up to this. Might just do a rope ladder, I don't know, I haven't worked that one out yet. And the window there, and that is going to have a balcony. I want to bring that round, and eventually I shall put a balcony out here to go on that window, those French doors there. I've used the brick wallpaper that I have from my main doll's house for this on the outsides here. And this is going to be another tower. So you actually have this going on here. This is a little bottle that you get from a hotel with soap or body lotion in it. And that is going to go in here like that. That will fit like that. And that will also have a turret roof on it. I'm going to do the all roofs in single shingle, and I will probably cut that from a cardboard. I'm fancying some nice kind of throne in there. I've seen something on the internet where you use glue to create a throne with almost a spider's web effect on the back. And the other plan I have here, where that room will come from there like that, I want to put another kind of mezzanine level there with stairs down into the turret room. So that is going to be my wizard's tower. There we are. It's a slow old process, but that's my wizard's tower. And I will get there. It'll take me a while because I have to do it between other jobs. But once it's done, it should be great fun. But I'll keep you up with the progress of that. But for the meantime, if you'd like to just have a look here, you can see the previous house that I did, my stump house.